they're 30-minute sessions and like 30-second breaks. That's what I love about the Whiteboard Conference. All right, welcome back. My name is Tony Morgan. I'm from New Spring Church. My boss and good friend Perry Noble is going to be up a little bit later this afternoon. But in these next few moments, I have a chance to introduce to you another one of my good friends. About 10 years ago now, 10 years ago, I made my first interaction with him. He actually interviewed me to join his small group, which says a lot about his personality. I'm talking about Tim Stevens. I served on the staff with Tim at Granger Community Church for a little over 8 years, and it was a joy. There are a few insights you might like to learn about Tim, and they all kind of revolve around the shared personality trait that we have. We are both closet introverts. You may think by our blogging or our opportunities to communicate in settings like this that we love being around people like you, but honestly, we don't. Some of my most intimate times with Tim were sitting across from him at Taco Bell or riding down the road for hours, not saying a word to each other. These were great moments. But fortunately, Tim does have a lot to communicate, and it all revolves around his heart for reaching today's culture, for people that don't yet know Christ. I think the last two sessions are going to set up what Tim is going to share very well. A number of months ago, I talked with Tim over the phone, and he was talking about some opportunities he had to write some new books, and then he outlined for me the book that just came out, Pop Goes the Church. He told me the story about what he was hoping to share in that book, and I told him, Tim, you need to write that book because that's your heart. And I just finished reading through the book for my second time. It's an outstanding book because it has lots of stories, not only about what's happening in Tim's ministry at Granger Community Church, but in churches across the country, including a number of churches represented in this room. Tim actually didn't see his first movie until he was 27 years old. And so I'm wondering, now that you're 28, is that right? I'm wondering what in the world, how Tim learned as much as he has learned about the culture. He's learned quite a bit. And more importantly, he's learned through God's wisdom, through the Bible, how we can try to use biblical principles from 2,000 years ago to reach an ever-changing culture today. So, if you would, please welcome to the platform Tim Stevens.
Okay, good morning. Man, I am so happy to be here. When Ben first kind of threw out this idea of one conference, 8 speakers, 30 minutes apiece, man, I got jazzed about that. And Ben has done an incredible job pulling this conference together and getting people rallied around it. It's just going to be a fun day. And I'm more excited about getting done with the next 30 minutes so I can hear the next 6 speakers or 5 speakers after me as well, because I'm just here to learn along with you guys. Now, I thought there'd be no better way to kind of start out a talk about this book, Pop Goes the Church, and the concepts in it, than by maybe watching a little bit of pop culture. So we're going to just watch a little bit of TV together, okay? Here we go.
It happened once a week on Wisteria Lane, like clockwork. The faithful would emerge from their homes in their Sunday best, with their family Bibles and their rosary beads. And they would head off to their various houses of worship, passing by a certain non-believer who had never taken an interest in their ritual. But on this day, Lynette Scavo, for the first time in her life, was struck by something. Something she would later think of as divine inspiration.
We should go to church. What? Why? What did we do?
It's just... We've been through a lot lately, and we have a lot to be thankful for. Don't you think we owe the big guy a little FaceTime?
Fine. We'll go to church. Next week.
I'm serious.
What's the rush? God will still be there next Sunday. The Pistons, on the other hand, they lose today, they're gone for good.
So I'm clear. You can't be bothered with saving your eternal soul because the Pistons have no defense?
Okay, look. You didn't grow up going to church. I did. My parents dragged me to St. Anthony's every Sunday. I've done my time.
Well, I haven't. I have some questions I would like answered. And I don't know anything about God or Jesus. And our kids don't either.
Well, you don't have to go to church to learn that stuff.
Yeah, I know about Jesus.
See?
He's the guy who helps out Santa Claus.
Get dressed, kids. We're going to church.
And isn't that the way, it happens in your community? Everyone on your block gets ready, gets in their Sunday best, heads off to church every Sunday morning, except maybe the one family. But when they're in crisis, they go to church as well. I don't think that's how it happens in today's world. There are so many people, that is not their first thought when they're thinking about their spiritual issues in their life. I do think people all across our communities are taking spiritual steps. They're on a path spiritually. But they're just not going to churches. They're not going to pastors many times for those answers. And that brings me to two realities I want to talk about today before I get to the idea that I want to share. Reality number one is that in so many places in our communities, churches are not making an impact. In fact, in a lot of cases, and Vince alluded to this in his talk, a lot of cases, church is the problem. They're not just neutral. They're actually getting in the way of the gospel. There are many who call themselves Christians, and they're kind of like this giant black canopy over the sun, keeping the world from seeing the light, and it's sad. Many of you have seen the new study that was published in a book called Unchristian by these two guys, Dave Kinnaman and Gabe Lyons. And in there, they cite 6 negative images that people have of Christians, kind of, the normal people out there. And they surveyed people that were 16 to 29 years old that have no connection to church. They're not in a church. They don't like church. They don't go to church. And they said, what are your views of Christians? And they found in this book 6 things that were true about Christians from this group of 16 to 29-year-olds. They said Christians are known as hypocritical, too focused on getting converts, homophobic, sheltered, too political, and judgmental. They also said in this study, Christianity is out of tune with the real-world choices, challenges, and lifestyles that they face. 75% of those surveyed said present-day Christianity could accurately be described as old-fashioned. 70% said they believe that faith is out of touch with reality. A different report, George Barna gave 4 reasons why church attendance across America is in decline. People avoid going to church because of one of 4 reasons. They perceive church life as irrelevant. They have vivid memories of bad personal experiences with churches. We've been there too. They feel unwelcome at churches, or they lack a sense of urgency or importance regarding church life. If you were to put everyone in your community into one of 3 categories, it might look like this. You might have the churched. The people who love church, go to church. Church is a part of their life. You might have the unchurched. These are the people who don't go to church. They haven't gone to church. They don't have church in their background. They don't have an interest in going to church. And then you have the de-churched, the ones that they've been to church, but for whatever reason, maybe through a fault of the church, maybe through a crisis in their own life, they're just not in church anymore. You got these 3 categories in your community. And I think we're doing pretty well with the first group. The churched are churched because they love church. Their needs are getting met. They might do some church hopping around. And as Vince talked about, a lot of the churches that are growing in today's culture are growing because people are just church hopping around and they move to a new community and they look for a church and they're churched. That's what they do. My concern, though, is that we're not reaching these other 2 groups. The bottom line of these surveys, a whole bunch of others, articles you've seen written, your personal observation is that there's a lot of churches not getting the job done. The churched and the de-churched, the unchurched and the de-churched make up a majority of the people in our community, but they're passing by our churches every day unaware and unimpressed